Fire and hold. Okay, 4 PM, Public Safety Committee meeting is now in session. Can I have a approval of the minutes from 8/21/24?
So moved.
Okay, first
Second.
First by Mr. Proctor, seconded by Mr. Landy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. This time, we'll open up the floor for privilege of the floor. If anyone's here to speak to the committee on anything that's on the agenda this evening.
On the agenda?
Yes.
Well, it's general public safety.
Is that any of these topics that are on this right here?
Do you have a public comment afterward?
We have other at the end.
I'll wait till other.
Okay. Okay, seeing none. Okay, we'll go on to proposed resolution number 1, authorize lease agreement with the town of Chautauqua for office space for the Chautauqua County Probation Department.
Good afternoon, Sam Zafuto, Deputy Director of Finance.
Tobin Disbro, Deputy Director, Chautauqua County Probation.
Okay, take us away.
You want me to do it? Okay. We respectfully recommend that you approve the resolution to authorize the county executive to execute a lease agreement for the office space at 2 Academy Street in Mayville, New York, to allow the probation department to effectively meet the goals of the raise the age legislation. Our ownership has changed, and so we need to switch the names on the checks.
Okay,
It's the same contract, it's just,
Yeah, it's with the town of Chautauqua
Right,
now
now
instead of
it's
the
the-
previous owner. There's no other change to it.
and we're still located at the same place and everything like
Yep.
that?
Absolutely.
Pretty easy peasy. Any other questions regarding this? gentlemen?
Same rent.
Yep.
Correct.
Rent is the
Same
same,
rent.
800?
Yep, it's same rent, and it is funded through the Raise the Age program through probation as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything else you gentlemen would like to add? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep, thank you. Okay, our next resolution is amend the 2024 budget for the Office of the Sheriff. Okay,
Jim
Stan.
Quattrone, Chautauqua County Sheriff.
Riley Enlow, Fiscal Supervisor.
Thank you, okay. Go ahead, Jim.
Our first resolution we have in front of you is to amend the 2024 budget for the Office of the Sheriff for the Grants Department. This is a budget neutral amendment for the Grants Department. It's to increase appropriations in the .8 employee benefits, $30,923, and then to increase the revenue accounts, New York State Aid, Other Public Safety, $16,411. New York State Aid, Other Public Safety for the gift grant, $4,789. And Federal Aid Drug Control Programs for $9,723 for a total of $30,923.
Okay. And why do we need to do this?
Basically, the COSAP grant is covering one of our employees' total salary for employee benefits, and that was not budgeted in the 2024 budget. We had to do a budget amendment through Just Grants, and we're able to cover that salary. So that's the biggest change.
Okay,
Why wasn't it covered?
We never
Or
asked.
why was it
we
in the
never-
budget?
So we never asked for it previously. When we first did the COSAP grant back in 2021, and we found out we were able to cover a corrections officer as a jail liaison for the reentry hub. So we put in for the budget through Just Grants. They approved it, and now we've been billing back all of 2023 and 2024.
okay. Anything else, gentlemen? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, next resolution is authorize execution of the Chautauqua County Abducted, Missing, Murdered, and Unidentified Women's Initiative Grant for fiscal year 2024.
Yes, this resolution is asking legislator to approve a grant, discretionary grant that we received through BJA for fiscal year '24 through Nick Langworthy's, Congressman Nick Langworthy's office. This is for the dates of March 9th, 2024 through December 31st, 2026. And for $100,000, there is no local match in this, and so we would be increasing our appropriation by $100,000 as well as increasing our revenue by $100,000.
Would this be, I was just reading in the paper like a week or so ago, with that Bendix girl that was missing, would this help with money going to help find
Yes.
other similar cases such as that?
Correct. The biggest use of this money will be to utilize some private labs for DNA testing that we haven't been able to send to the state labs. It just doesn't have the technology. And these private labs are quite costly. So, you know, one of the labs we're using is in the Woodlands, Texas Ortham lab, which has had quite a bit of success. So,
Okay.
How many tests can this $100,000 get? How much is it? I
so,
mean-
so my favorite answer is it depends. It really does. It's hard to say because it
I knew
depends on
that,
what the
yeah.
testing, you know, how much testing they're gonna have to do. So, you know, we're hoping that this will, you know, help with several of the cases. But really, it's difficult to say.
You could have several.
I can say several. We're gonna use several, whether it's gonna satisfy all of them. You know, we, unfortunately, we have in Chautauqua County, not just the sheriff's office, but throughout the county, over 20 open cases that they're still working on.
20 unsolved cases.
Actually, I believe it's 25, but over 20 is a safer
I didn't
number.
prioritize that.
They've reviewed all of them, and we'll look at the different cases. And some of them are prioritized by the age of them, the availability of witnesses, the concern of witnesses being in the area or leaving the area. So
Probability of getting them solved.
that's a big part of it. And
This
you know,
would
so
be the final thing.
it could be we're using some of this money for the I forget the year, but the Rails Trails where we found the 2 bodies. We are using that money for DNA testing down at Ortham for that.
Is the state looking to upgrade their technology to equal what these private places are doing?
I do not know.
I was just curious.
Not that I've heard. So, but I couldn't say for certain.
Is this a grant that we applied for, or did Congressman Langworthy kind of go out and get this?
We applied
zone?
through. We knew about the opportunity.
Okay.
So one of our unsolved case team members wrote to Grant and applied through Congressman Langworthy's
Oh,
office.
I thought maybe he made you aware of it and then you applied, or, doesn't
His
matter,
office
really.
does make us aware of grants that are available
Mhm.
on a regular basis. So when they come up, they send us an email
Yeah.
and notify us. And our investigator was
Mhm.
keeping up on that and follow up on it and applied for the grant.
Any other cares or concerns?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, our next proposed resolution is amend the 2024 budget for the Department of Emergency Services, EMT/CPR training. If you'd be so kind to state your name and for the record, please.
Noel Gutman, Director of Emergency Services.
Bonnie Peters, Principal, Town Clerk, Emergency Services.
Okay.
So this first one is a budget neutral one. We have gotten more revenue than we had expected, and we need to bring that in to cover some contractual trainers.
And these are private individuals that we hire to come in to train our staff?
Yes. No, no, not to train our staff. They come in and we have like our EMT class. So individuals come in to take our class. They could be our staff, but usually they are outside individuals that come in, and we have trainers that we have to teach them EMT, to teach them the CPR class. So,
Gotcha.
yes.
Just fire department volunteers that, or just general public? Or?
It could,
Most of them are fire department related in some way.
some of them are schools, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The next one is our 21
The
SHS.
next proposed resolution is amend the 2024 OES budget for fiscal year 2021 SHSP grant.
So this
Go
is.
ahead, Mrs. Peters.
Sorry.
Okay.
This is a grant that we had received, and we had funds that we had not put into the current budget. So this brings in those funds and the expenses, the revenue and the expense for that grant.
So this one is for 30,717.
Right.
Okay. Questions, gentlemen? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, the next resolution, amend the 2024 OES budget for FY 2022 SHSP grant.
This one also is the same for that grant. It is revenue and expense that were not included in the current 24 budget. So this would bring in both the revenue and the expense.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, last resolution is amend the 2024 budget for the Chautauqua County Department of Emergency Services Fly Car and Ambulance Service.
So we are asking for money to come in to help us cover the cost of the umbrella agencies that came underneath of us. When we did the 24 budget, we only had one department on the horizon. Celeron was our only one. So we have corrected this for the 25 budget, but for now, we need to have additional funds to cover the for those umbrella agencies.
So this would be just advancing money for the fly car, and then once the other communities start sending their revenue back to us, this will,
No, so we get the revenue from the billing agent, and then we pass it through to the different fire departments. So we originally had put in 100,000 in both the revenue for the fire stations and the expense for the fire stations. We did not know how many stations we would end up with, how busy they might be. So we really tried to do the best we could, at that time. But we have had multiple stations come underneath of us. Some of them have been busy. So through July, we had sent out 225,000 to different agencies, which is more, of course, than we had budgeted. So based off of the last few months, we are anticipating about $45,000 per month will come in and need to go back out to those agencies.
Currently, I think we have nine, I was just trying to do it in my head, but it's 9 or 10 or 11 agencies that are currently under that umbrella agreement that are working with us in this manner.
okay.
And this is for ambulance services.
This is, yeah, for the, when the individual fire department, you know, the volunteer fire departments that are working under our license.
For the, when they transport someone. 'cause our
Correct.
Black does not
Yeah,
transport, okay. How much, I know it's almost a guess, but how much should you budget yearly for this?
So this is not for our FICAR though, this
Right,
is for,
right.
yeah. So we, you know, we've kind of tried to review it, you know, since we have started. But it's taken us a while to get to where we think we are. We still believe that there are a few agencies that will be coming under us for the near future. We have at least one with the law department right now.
when this started, there was, you know, when this started, there were 42 fire departments in the county. For reference, there's now 40 today. But we thought at one point we'd have 28 departments, then we might only have 5. And it really went back and forth as departments decided which direction they wanted to go to, whether they wanted to work under our umbrella or if they wanted to be their own billing. And we're getting a much better idea now that it's kind of settled out, so we should have some more accurate estimates going forward.
But each contract we split revenue, correct? It's,
Correct.
Was it roughly 80/20?
I think it was 85-15, because we're just,
85-15.
basically all we're doing, and that's, you know, I'll just say, you know, XYZ department goes out on a call, and there's no county medic, no county personnel, they're just going on the call, doing 100% of it, going, transporting the patient, coming back in service. You know, that's where that split is in there, and if our medic's on board, that's a, you know, a different idea, a different area.
But we're short 425,000?
Yes.
Does that 85/15 need to be revisited?
Well, this is money, like I said, this is money that's coming into us,
Okay.
and then it's going out. You know, so it's, I guess it's I still have to wrap my head around it a little bit too, so
Okay.
that's why I got the big guns with me to explain it.
That's why I'm looking at her.
So when the money comes in,
Right.
we figure out each of the calls. You know, Tim reviews all of the sheets that come in, and this call was $200, whatever.
Yeah,
All the
right.
money that the billing agent has sent to us on that call's behalf.
Right.
So then we go through, figure out what it is. We subtract our 15%. We subtract the fee that the billing agent charges, and then we send them the difference. So again, when we did the 24 budget, it was very new. We only had one that we were sure was coming on with us, but again, we had no clue what it was going to, how it was going to work.
Bonnie, let me see if I can help.
Okay,
Please do.
thank
So,
you.
You receive the information from the billing agents as to how much is going to be billed to the insurance companies, and you then send the money that is anticipated to be earned by the department to the department before it's received by the county?
No.
Well, then, your explanation doesn't make sense. And Marty's on the right track here, is that you receive $100, and you keep 15, and you send 85 to the fire department. Why do we have a $425,000 deficit?
Because, so, we have received, on all these calls, we have received $224,448 plus our 15%, not including the $33 that the billing agent charges. Then, so, we only go off of the money that has been received. So, some portions of the money come directly from Medicaid, Medicare, some are even private insurance comes directly to the county. Some of that, the private insurance and the private payer go through the billing agent. So they send us a report that shows every call that they have collected money on,
Okay.
not the calls that haven't collected money. So we'll get a call and it'll be, $500 Medicaid, and then there'll be an adjustment of whatever that amount is, and then it'll be $200, whatever the difference is, right? So the county has at that point received the $200. So now we take our 15 off of it, we subtract what the billing agent charges us, cause we pay the billing agent, right? So then whatever the difference is what gets sent out to the agency.
Right.
Right.
So where does the deficit come from that we need to cover $425,000 when, Sam, you with me on this?
Well, I get what you're saying. Yeah, the issue is we've expended, I mean, we're over budget at this point, so we've expended over for the payments out to this district. And I believe the revenue is short, so we don't have a surplus of revenue to offset. I think we talked at audit control the end about the Medicaid rate. So there's a shortfall of revenue that's also in this department, so it's not something that, I think at the end of audit control, we projected about $700,000 deficit countywide, and this is part of that number we was talking about.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense that this $425,000 relates to the,
Well, part of that is it's three times the payments coming in and out on this, but we're also having a revenue shortfall on top of this.
that's what the problem is, it's a revenue
Right.
shortfall,
The original revenue.
original revenue, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, cause
Yes.
my initial projection, we're gonna be about $200,000 light for revenue,
Yeah.
For 2024 as well.
Right. Sam, I'm not disputing that there's a shortfall in this department. What I'm, belaboring is Bonnie's explanation of what caused the shortfall doesn't really make a lot of sense to us. I'm gonna say Marty and me.
Yeah, no, it's partly the revenue shortfall, and that's the additional districts coming on, so the expense is higher on top of this, so.
The expenses are higher,
Yeah, because
yes.
of the payments out, and then the revenue on the other side of, which I believe is the Medicaid side, is also short, so now we don't have the increased revenue for this expense at this time.
Right.
So why don't we, instead of paying, wait until we get the revenue before we reimburse?
We do.
We do.
We do.
We
That's
do.
where I started to go, thinking that was the problem, but
Yeah.
it's
We
not.
do.
Yeah, nothing is paid out until we receive it.
So,
So we're always paying out, we're always collecting 15% of whatever we get,
Yep.
Yes.
right,
plus the fee.
Just taking out of that
Because-
top.
So that's just,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, we're never paying out money that we haven't got. We're only
Right.
paying out money once it's
so what
been,
are the expenses that we're incurring then?
the
Other
the
than-
only expense we're occurring is expensing out to the agency. So, when we did our original budget, we had a budget and, audit and control added to our budget. So, we have not gotten extra revenue like we did on that first one we looked at. We haven't gotten extra revenue to cover these expenses. And when we originally did our budget and considered the umbrella fire departments that would come underneath of us, we included that we would get $100,000 of revenue for them, and we would send out $100,000 in revenue for them.
That's when we only thought we had one
Right.
seller then.
That's when, back last year,
Right.
when we were trying to do the 24, we really had no idea what it was going to be like. But so with all these extra ones coming through us, through July, we were already at $224,000 extra that we had gotten in from Medicaid, from private insurances, that really were coming through us and going out to the agencies. So we put in for 100,000, thinking 100,000 would go out. So now we have given out $225,000, which is more than what we had projected to bring in and to send out. So we already have that shortfall in our expensing out, and we expect it to be about $45,000 monthly that we will continue to send out to the to those umbrella agencies. My accounting mind might be making this harder than it is, Sam.
In addition, this resolution is to cover also the fly car vehicle it's not just the payments to the district. They did give me a list of what the expenses were gonna be for the rest of the year. So it's obviously the payments to the districts, it's the lease payments to the fly cars, it's the fuel to operate the fly cars, snow tires. Basically, the bare minimum is what they're proposing for the rest of this year at this
Yep.
point.
But just to put people's minds at ease, the umbrella arrangements we have with the districts, we take 15% of the revenue received. And that covers our expenses.
Right.
So it's still a good project for the county because we have almost no expenses involved in managing those umbrella agreements. And we're getting 15% to cover the few expenses that we do have. It's good for the departments, the fire departments, because we're handling the billing and all that. And we're making sure the billing company gets paid, and we're following up to make sure that they're collecting. So it's good for the departments, and it's good for the county. So I don't want people to get the impression that this is not a good idea. These umbrella arrangements are not a good idea. They're a really good idea for the department and for the county. And I'm still gonna contend that we're not losing any money on those umbrella agreements.
We are
It-
not losing
Yeah,
money. No,
can't believe we are. but I
No.
just
we
don't-
are not.
I don't,
No.
And like, it's just to clarify, nothing's getting paid out until the money comes in, and then, Tim Carlson in our office looks at it and says, okay, that
Right.
decides where that goes. So nothing's being paid out ahead of time. Because that wouldn't be accurate, because, you bill at one rate and the insurance negotiate a different cost, and so those percentages are based on the money received in, not projected to be, not billed out.
Right.
Okay.
okay.
In fairness, my head hurts a little bit with
I'm
this stuff
still
too.
lost on it.
But no, you agree with my conclusion? is that
Yes.
These are good arrangements.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a good
Yes.
arrangement, I guess I just don't understand why we need to add 425, unless it's primarily fly car.
It's other expenses that are over budget
Okay.
and other shortages of revenue compared to the budget.
Okay.
And like I said, I
Right,
know
Sam?
last year there
Yeah,
was.
this is just, I mean, this is the line item, when you look at it, it looks like, oh, it's way over, but it's the department as a whole that's having a revenue shortfall. And then this is to cover expenses for the whole year, as I mentioned earlier.
Is there any way to separate the two out? Because when you first started explaining it, I thought it was simply these billing arrangements.
No.
And it's not, it's.
The whole
it's the whole
project.
package, so, okay.
How many fly cars do we have?
Currently, four areas in the cars are stationed at, plus a supervisor.
And it's a great program, don't get me wrong, it's just,
It
Yeah.
helps.
So how do we, well, let's vote on this, and then I have a question for you after we're done. Any other questions regarding this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So I actually had two questions now. How do we, any idea on moving forward, how we're gonna be able to rectify this for next year?
So, when we did the budget, we were already aware of this, and other than these, I think it's three more that we think are going to come with us. We have tried to go through and see really what we have been getting in, so that when we put the expense out for it, that we're putting in what we expect to get and what we expect. And so the last 3 months, we have sent to the agents, to the different agencies, about $45,000 each of the last 3 months. But again, which,
And I believe last year there was $350,000 in revenue added on to what we said we'd be at. I think that's
right,
part of the issue.
audit and control added that in on top of what we had put as our projected revenue. So, again, there isn't that, even though a revenue is coming in for these, our revenue as a whole was projected so high that there isn't extra revenue to cover these. So they're only getting the revenue that's coming in that belongs to them. But because as a department as a whole, it was larger than
Anticipated.
anticipated.
To further answer your question, how do we, hopefully, I know, Kitty Crow just sent an email today that there was some legislation signed by the governor, something to enhance some Medicaid billing. Hopefully, things like that. Hopefully, there's some other, bills that I've been made aware of that are pending, pending approval at the state level that might increase those rates and, things like that, that would hopefully help us, recoup more revenue. Because unfortunately, and as you've heard many times, we have a large Medicaid population, and those rates are really dismal for reimbursement across the board. And if those rates could be, at a state level better, it would help all of us.
Would it help to change that percentage at 85-15? Would it, or,
80/20?
yeah?
Yeah, and it's obviously something we've talked about, and that's, when it was established, we started somewhere, and knowing that we would probably be looking at it in the future. So.
Mr. Chairman, I can explain what I shared with Audit and Control last month when we got a preview of this coming. I spent literally months working with Tim Carlson at Emergency Medical Services on the 2025, in anticipation of the 2025 budget. And what we revealed was that many of the assumptions that went into the 2024 budget were erroneous. For example, the assumption of the payer mix, as Noel indicated, Medicaid pays a very low rate, Medicare pays a higher rate, private insurance pays a much higher rate. So the assumption was that we were gonna get a mix, X percent from Medicare, Y percent from Medicaid, et cetera. Our experience now proves that those assumptions were erroneous. We're getting a much less favorable payer mix. And some of the rates that were assumed to be paid by the individual payers, Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, were also higher than what we are experiencing. So we went through and we made adjustments to bring our expectations in line with what we've been experiencing, and that, I believe, is now going to be the basis for the 2025 budget, putting it much more into a realistic perspective of what the FlyCar program costs us. What we did discover is that the ambulance transport that we put in place to assist Westfield Hospital is paying for itself. The assumptions that went into that were accurate, other than we assumed maybe in 2024 more volume than what we're experiencing. But the payer mix and the rates were accurate, and so that ambulance transport is paying for itself. So
I think Bonnie had a figure
That's
here.
a good part of the program. And that, won't see any, changes in the 2025 budget other than for the volume.
So as of August 31st, the transfer truck on itself is to the plus of $26,970 after all of its expenses.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Yes. I think I finally said something that made sense.
Tim, Noel, my last question, because last month we had that presentation from the gentleman from Clymer.
Yes. I thought they were gonna be here today, and I saw, last minute, I got an email, said they weren't.
Yeah, because it wasn't on the agenda for them to come, but where we are now, I mean, now we have 4 fly cars and we've expanded or whatever, but financially, how can we say that we want to put a 5th fly car on to cover another area when we're losing so much revenue?
I can tell you the situation that has changed out there is you went from an area of the county that was very well protected by the local volunteers who donated their time to get the training and were able to run a lot of calls. And those people are moving on and not around anymore. And it comes down to a point where Clymer in particular was a department, great group of guys. They had some very dedicated people, but some of those people are no longer available, no longer doing it. And they went from having their own medics to now calling for us. And just geographically, it's taking, 20 to 27 minutes on average to get a medic there. If they're coming out, depending on where in Clymer, they're coming out of the Lakewood office or the Mayville office. And, we have to, what time does it take, does it take to get care to somebody is, where it's at.
I
You
know
know, it's
you-
a difficult situation, but
I know you can't put a price on a human's life. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been an advocate for this fly car thing since it started. But, also.
yeah, that is, like I say, when we look at the area of the map, it is an area that is underprotected based on current circumstances. And, that's something that we can look at and talk about. Would it be better to put a fly car there, or would it be better to put a double-staffed ambulance with a basic medic that could, you get more reimbursement with those ambulance costs? So those are some of the logistical questions we can move at forward, saying, what's gonna be the best option for that? And as they need an ALS provider, they could call for it. And if there's one that wasn't available, like today, there was a call, today or yesterday, kind of blended together. Department went out and dispatch told them right off the bat, every medic in the county is tied up. So they had to deal with it on a basic life support level, which is perfectly acceptable. And that's what they did. And, I guess when we get to that point, we seriously start talking about, do we need to put an asset out there? Those are some of the discussions that we need to have, is what is the best resource to put out there?
There's another area that's not covered. Was it Cherry Creek?
Yeah, Cherry Creek is having a difficult time as well. I mean, it's unfortunately, and it's the same, you've heard it before, the state's not making it easier to be an EMT or maintain being one. And a lot of people are just, I've done it for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You got some
think that
people in the
was
west part of the county that, one of the providers goes on 90% of their calls and he's pushing 80. And
He's
he
over
just,
it, Bob Crane.
yeah,
He's
Bob's a
over it.
wonderful human being.
Yeah, he's great.
And he just is like, I wanna, yeah. He's a great person, a great provider, and he's been a staple in that community. And, Clymer had some of the same things, and that's what's causing us to have to look at those areas that, like, how do we protect our residents and support our fire departments in doing it?
And guests, Peak and Peak is out there where a lot of majority of their calls are Peak and Peak that.
Yeah, I think I saw Clymer get at one sheet that 120, 140 calls were at Peak and Peak.
Yeah. And there was.
And that was a
one where-
lousy ski season.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
right.
And there was one where a baby was turning blue and they couldn't do anything.
So
They-
I
they
know
waited
they're
25
passionate about their area, and I know they were planning on being here, but I'm sure they will be as soon as they can be.
Well, I think we had to have more discussion
Yeah.
before, as a.
And I know you've been involved
Yeah.
with some of that, so,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our last, section here is under other. Is anyone here to speak under other?
Yes.
Procedure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here, I have it. You gave me two.
Karen Engstrom, Town of Chautauqua.
Hey, you got 3 minutes.
Oh, gosh. All right, well, I'm pushing 81, so I'll try harder.
Okay.
Industrial solar update for September. The situation for energy in this county is getting worse, not better. So I ask, are we becoming like the frog in the proverbial boiling pot when it comes to solving the energy problem? I ask, why is Nebraska paying 9.8 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity, Pennsylvania 18 cents, and New York 28 cents per kilowatt hour? Well, in Nebraska, they use a thing called energy returned on energy invested, which is a ratio that measures the amount of energy produced from a source, an energy source, compared to the energy it takes to produce it. That's like a cost-benefit analysis. In order to use the EROEI, one must remove the carbon credit scams, the investors looking for a quick buck, and the fraud about saving the climate, the short-term cash for a locale that will encounter long-term economic and environmental harm. That's us. And so my concern is that we end up in a situation that gets worse and not better. Dunkirk, for instance, was 40% supported by the power plant. NRG was closed by the state. It represented 40% of the tax base. If it had proceeded with its almost completed dual cycle gas production of electricity, it would have produced 460 plus megawatts of electricity, planned to be doubled to 800 plus. That's affordable dual cycle clean energy. It is dispatchable 100% of the time. Solar and wind is targeting us, and it produces 12 to 15% of what the developers and the grifters claim it produces. The state shut NRG, ditto for the BPU. I'd like to quote the FERC commissioner, Philip Moeller, that's the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, quote, "You must back up solar power with baseload gas, coal, and nuclear so the grid system will not collapse. Solar is not efficient, and ramping up gas and coal, which is the backup, causes wear and tear on those systems. Solar and wind have been imposed on rural communities at a great cost. It has poor efficiency and little dispatchability. They are not competitive on the open market, and I attached an article from the Wall Street Journal, which brings us to, well, the article is called The Coming Energy Crisis and has a lot of great statistics. The next step in our frog in the water that's getting hotter, and that is, what do? We put in storage. So wind and solar are, not consistent, they're irregular. That brings us to BESS. Well, BESS has been proposed now for Ellicott. Battery energy storage systems. Proposed in Ellicott, this one claims 100 megawatt power would be stored, but 100 megawatt BESS only stores power for 4 hours. So far, they are saying the cost will be $100 million for a 4-hour backup. How many of our small communities, and they're all being targeted with producers and developers that want to put BESS in our backyards? Well, BESS is very well known for its safety concerns, catastrophic fires, explosions, and the release of toxic gases. The fraud of BESS is stunning. Hezbollah, as of yesterday, can explain to you just what happens when a lithium battery explodes. You know where Hezbollah is, right, everybody? NRG already exists. It sits on a less than 100-acre lot. It's all hooked up to the internet. And one wise legislator among us suggested that in a thoughtful way that NRG could be reconsidered because it is there, ready to be turned into a dual cycle gas production unit, and it is clean. I have an excerpt here, and I won't read it because I'm limited. Several counties in western New York have passed solar laws or regulations that protect their residents and the environment from this onslaught that our state is trying to impose. Prohibiting payment in lieu of taxes has been done by this group for wind. Requiring recycling of valuable solar components is another stipulation that other counties have suggested to their IDAs or to their communities, or backed up their little townships who need the help from you guys. Requiring written guarantees that PFAS, and PFAS is described later here, does not exist in solar components. It's the pollutant, the toxic pollutant that shut down Mayville at a cost of $3 million to re-drill wells to provide water for the people here and endangering them in the wild. We ask that this county do the same to protect us and begin to look at this long-range problem. And to answer the question, why does Nebraska pay 9.8 cents a kilowatt hour? Well, it's because they use affordable, abundant, dispatchable clean coal and clean gas energy. And they also consider and analyze using the energy returned on the energy invested, which is essential. The legacy that they leave is one that benefits Nebraska residents and businesses. And guess who's promoting small modular reactors, nuclear reactors? It's our very own ex-governor, Andy, shut down all the gas plants, Cuomo. Very fine quote from Mr.
Hey,
Borello on the back.
wrapping up, your time is
3
up.
minutes, I'm done?
You've had 5.
Oh, gee, I'll have to. Anyway, the Borello thing on the very back of the first page says it all. I didn't need to do anything. I could have just given you his statement. It's very strong.
Thank you. Okay, this time we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Mr. Proctor, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Landy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is now adjourned.
Have a nice ride home.
Yeah.